Part 4 of the dialogues is a continued discussion between Cleanthes, Demea, and Philo. It picks up where Part 3 left off, with a discussion between Cleanthes and Demea about man's ability to know God, or the divine, through natural reason without revelation. Cleanthes, whom we said earlier is Hume's representation of a natural theologian, thinks that his teleological argument gives sufficient proof of God, and provides the justification for the belief in God. In other words, Cleanthes thinks that all we need to do is observe the natural order and rationally reflect on it in order to know that God exists. Once we see that the design in nature is like the design in machines created by men, only much bigger, the conclusion that the material world must have a great designer with something like a human mind naturally follows. Demea rejects more than just the validity of Cleanthes' teleological argument. Demea does not think that we can reason about the nature of God through observing nature at all. Demea thinks that if we are going to reason about God, this must be done with pure reason, not sense experience. Reasoning by way of experience, according to Demea, leads to all sorts of problems, not the least of which is Cleanthes' anthropomorphism. An anthropomorphism is attributing human-like characteristics to something that is not human. Demea points out that in order for Cleanthes' teleological argument to work, we must say that God is like us, or in Cleanthes' terms, that the world is a machine that exhibits design, so therefore it must have been designed by a human-like mind. Demea thinks that this argument leads to heresy. Cleanthes argues that in stating the divine is not like human beings at all, Demea gives way to mysticism, and ultimately formulates an understanding of the divine that makes God completely incomprehensible to the human mind. How can we understand something that has no likeness to us at all? Cleanthes argues. Demea responds to Cleanthes' accusations with the following. In reality, Cleanthes, consider what it is that you assert. When you represent the deity as similar to human mind and understanding, what is the soul of man? A composition of various faculties, passions, sentiments, ideas, united indeed into one self or person, but still distinct from each other. When it reasons, the ideas, which are the parts of its discourse, arrange themselves in a certain form or order, which is not preserved entire for a moment, but immediately gives place to another arrangement. New opinions, new passions, new affections, new feelings arise, which continually diversify the mental scene, and produce in it the greatest variety and most rapid succession imaginable. How is this compatible with that perfect immutability and simplicity which all true theists ascribe to the deity? Cleanthes can call me names like mystic all day long, according to Demea, but at least my view does not lead to the heresy of saying God is like man. While this interaction between Cleanthes and Demea signals the beginning of Part 4 of the dialogues, the majority of Part 4 is a long critique given by Philo of Cleanthes' teleological argument, which Cleanthes gave earlier in Part 2. Philo attacks Cleanthes' argument that the design seen in nature must have a divine designer with a mind like man's. According to Cleanthes, it is reasonable to assert that a divine mind can causally account for the design in the material world. Philo, however, does not think that this argumentation is convincing. Philo states his contention through a series of questions. How, therefore, shall we satisfy ourselves concerning the cause of that being, whom you suppose the author of nature, or according to your system of anthropomorphism, the ideal world, into which you trace the material? Have we not the same reason to trace that ideal world into another ideal world, or a new intelligent principle? But if we stop, why go no farther? Why go so far at all? Why not stop at the material world? How can we satisfy ourselves without going on in infinitum? And after all, what satisfaction is there in that infinite progression? Philo herein attempts to show that Cleanthes' argument leads to a dilemma. Either Cleanthes affirms that the ideal world, i.e. God, designed himself, or the idea that every realm or world needs to be designed by a higher realm or world would lead Cleanthes to posit an infinite multitude of ideal realms or deities causing each other. The first side of the dilemma will lead to a contradiction in Cleanthes' principles. Cleanthes earlier thought it was irrational to assert that the world could have design and no designer. According to Philo, if Cleanthes holds that the material world cannot cause its own design, neither can the ideal realm or deity. Either both realms can design themselves, or neither can. But Philo thinks that Cleanthes would be irrational to say that the material world needs a deity to design it, but the deity can design himself. In the end, Philo thinks that Cleanthes' argument fails, because it would be more rational to hold that the design in the material world is self-caused than to posit an infinitely large number of deities designing each other.